She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
I can only make grilled cheese.
You're kidding, right?
I'm the hottest person in the world.
I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part.
Perhaps the best team play.
So I've got my Baymax blanket, which I use when I have anxiety.
Snow White is running for president.
Nobody wants
a movie about true love?
Just let the bloat be bloat. Let her bloat. I am not asking. I am demanding.
After already being roasted into meme history by South Park and clowned on national television by The Simpsons, insiders now claim the humiliation is far from over.
I'm like so ready to just throw my phone away. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but I know it's gonna happen.
Yes, please. Do go right now.
According to whispers circulating inside the animation world, writers for The Simpsons are allegedly planning to bring Rachel back for more brutal jabs in future episodes, turning her into an ongoing punchline that could stretch far beyond the Snow White disaster.
You know what I can't wait to quit? Social media.
Sources close to the situation reportedly say the Snowwoke parody inside The Simpsons wasn't a one-off gag. It tested so well with audiences, spiking online views, TikTok edits, and meme compilations that producers are allegedly considering weaving Rachel's cartoon counterpart into upcoming storylines.
It was a magical time, and I'm a Disney princess, and it was just very magical.
If true, this would mean Rachel's public meltdown won't just be frozen in one savage scene. It could be replayed, escalated, and turned into a permanent part of Springfield's satirical universe, and the timing couldn't be worse. Rachel's career is already teetering after the Snow White remake flopped so hard it became a case study in self-sabotage.
People have real problems and no one gives a shit if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary.
Her interviews backfired, her social media turned into a cringe compilation, and Hollywood insiders are reportedly growing nervous about casting her in anything remotely high profile. Now, with The Simpsons allegedly sharpening their pencils for round 2 or 3 or 4, Rachel's chances of quietly moving past the scandal are crumbling fast. Officially, neither The Simpsons writers nor Disney executives have confirmed anything about additional appearances. But in a town where rumors often fly faster than press releases, insiders say the buzz is real.
Maybe Disney has learned their lesson, maybe not.
And if The Simpsons do turn Rachel's Snow White into a recurring joke, it could lock her into the very cultural humiliation she's been desperate to escape. Because in Hollywood, there's bad press. And then there's becoming the running gag that every cartoon, every meme, and every punchline keeps alive long after the credits roll. It didn't happen overnight, but when Rachel Zegler's downfall finally hit, it hit like a freight train, and animation studios were some of the first to grab a seat and start taking notes. What started as mild internet frustration over a few awkward interviews snowballed into something far bigger. A meme movement, a cultural symbol, a living, breathing example of Hollywood losing touch with its audience.
Lots of people to thank for this video. Is that inappropriate?
And for shows like South Park and The Simpsons, Rachel wasn't just an easy target, she was the target. It all began when Rachel's Snow White press tour clips started circulating online. The dismissive comments about the original 1937 film, the jabs at the prince being a stalker, the talk of rewriting fairy tales for a modern audience, it all sounded less like excitement for a beloved role and more like a lecture nobody asked for. At first, it was just a few frustrated fans venting online. But once the memes started rolling, Rachel's image shifted almost overnight from breakout starlet to out-of-touch Hollywood elite, and the timing couldn't have been worse. In an era where audiences were already exhausted by corporate reboots and heavy-handed messaging, Rachel became the perfect lightning rod.
This clip is already 9 minutes long on my phone, and I bet you learned nothing.
She wasn't just starring in a movie people were skeptical about, she was talking in exactly the way that frustrated them most. Preachy, condescending, acting as if anyone who loved the original Snow White was hopelessly outdated. Enter South Park. With their Pandaverse special, they lit the first match, mercilessly roasting not just Rachel's version of Snow White, but the entire culture around it. The satire was savage, viral, and unforgettable, and it turned Rachel into a household meme almost overnight. Then came The Simpsons. Their Snowwoke parody didn't just mock the movie, it mocked Rachel's entire public image, the lectures, the entitlement, the disconnect. And it hit so hard that, according to insider speculation, the writers are allegedly considering weaving her into future episodes as a recurring gag. For Rachel, it's the kind of branding no PR team on Earth can spin away. In Hollywood, stars dream of becoming iconic. But becoming infamous in animated form? That sticks even harder.
The producers, far left-wing activists in Hollywood, are turning on her, and Disney has canceled all of Rachel Zegler's appearances on their media platforms.
And unless something drastic changes, Rachel Zegler might have just joined a very small, very unfortunate club. Celebrities so mocked that even animated characters can't stop laughing at them. Long before The Simpsons decided to fire their own shot, Disney's Snow White remake was already swirling the drain. Insiders say the panic within Disney's executive halls began months earlier, as early audience reactions and leaked details painted a grim picture. What was supposed to be a nostalgic home run had turned into a catastrophic marketing nightmare, one that no amount of glossy trailers or empowerment speeches could patch over. From the beginning, audiences sensed something was off. Rumors had circulated about the dwarfs being replaced with random magical creatures, a plotline focusing more on internal empowerment speeches than fairy tale magic, and Rachel Zegler's now infamous press comments dismissing the 1937 classic as outdated and problematic. Fans who had once lined up for Disney remakes like Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King didn't just hesitate this time, they openly revolted. Early box office projections tanked fast. Merchandise tied to the film, costumes, dolls, posters, sat untouched in stores. Retailers slashed prices even before the film hit theaters, a silent acknowledgement that they didn't expect much foot traffic. Leaked internal numbers allegedly showed Snow White was on track to be one of Disney's worst-performing live-action remakes ever, and by the time the movie opened, the nightmare had come true.
What can be said about this level of narcissism? Here, please, enjoy.
Theaters sat empty. Viral TikToks showed deserted auditoriums. Commentators mocked the film mercilessly, calling it preachy, lifeless, and deeply disconnected from what made the original Snow White magical. Even longtime Disney loyalists admitted that something fundamental had been lost, and that Rachel Zegler's off-putting interviews hadn't helped. In short, Snow White was already a legend, for all the wrong reasons, before The Simpsons even sharpened their satirical knives. And that's what made the Snowwoke parody so brutal. It wasn't just kicking a film while it was down. It was standing on the wreckage, waving a giant neon sign that said, "Look how badly they messed this up." Now, with rumors swirling that Rachel's animated humiliation could continue in future episodes, the reality is clear. The Simpsons didn't create this disaster. They simply memorialized it, one savage joke at a time. If you blinked, you might have thought it was just another throwaway gag. But for anyone paying attention, The Simpsons' Snowwoke. The reimagining parody wasn't just funny. It was a surgical strike straight at the heart of Disney's Snow White disaster. And insiders say it landed harder than anyone inside Disney dared to admit. In the fake in-universe movie, Snow White wasn't a wide-eyed dreamer waiting for true love. She was a walking corporate checklist, lecturing woodland creatures about the patriarchy, rejecting any hint of romance and rolling her eyes at every classic fairy tale trope. The prince? Downgraded to a useless background extra. The dwarfs? Erased in favor of magical creatures who spent their time holding emotional support meetings instead of mining gems. And the iconic love story? Replaced with awkward sermons about empowerment and privilege, delivered with all the warmth of a corporate training seminar. Every line in Snowwoke felt like it had been ripped directly from the worst of Rachel Zegler's interviews. The ones where she dismissed the original film, trashed the prince character, and insisted Snow White needed to be rewritten for a modern age.
What would you say to those who are just kind of overly critiquing the film at this point? You've worked so hard on it.
I'm getting on across the block here. Yeah, hold on.
All right.
It was so on the nose that fans didn't even need hints. They knew exactly who and what was being roasted. Even more brutal, the show's depiction of Disney executives themselves. In the episode, corporate suits stumble over each other, desperately, trying to inject more buzzwords into the script while their latest reboot burns down around them. It wasn't just Rachel that got skewered. It was the entire Disney machine, from marketing to management, caught in the crossfire. Insiders speculate that the Snowwoke parody hit so hard because it wasn't an exaggeration. It was barely even satire. It simply reflected what fans had already been saying for months, that Disney's attempt to modernize Snow White had drained every ounce of magic from the story, leaving behind a hollow, joyless product no one wanted to buy. And if rumors are true that the Simpsons writers aren't finished yet, that they may weave even more Rachel-themed mockery into future episodes, then this first roast was just the opening salvo. Because in Springfield, once you become a punchline, they don't just let you walk away. They keep the jokes coming until there's nothing left but echoes. Publicly, Rachel Zegler stayed silent after The Simpsons aired their brutal Snowwoke parody, but insiders close to the situation paint a very different picture behind closed doors. According to multiple whispers circling Hollywood, Rachel wasn't just embarrassed, she was livid. Furious that yet another iconic animated show had turned her into a national punchline. Furious that her nightmare wasn't fading, but intensifying. Sources allegedly claim that Rachel's reaction to the parody was immediate and emotional. She reportedly felt betrayed, not just by the broader entertainment world, but by Disney itself. After all, The Simpsons is technically a Disney property now, falling under the company's massive media umbrella. Watching the very studio that once crowned her as the future of its live-action division sit back while their own cartoon ripped her apart, allegedly cut deeper than anything South Park had done. Some rumors suggest Rachel contacted her team within hours of the episode airing, demanding to know why no one had warned her this was coming, or what could be done to stop it. But insiders say there was little to be done. Satire protections made any attempt to pull or censor the episode legally impossible.
I don't know if that mirror was broken, but that has to be one hell of an acting job by Gal Gadot. She looks into the mirror and she says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And then they show her a picture of Rachel Zegler, and somehow she has to not burst out laughing.
And even if they could, doing so would have only fed the media frenzy, guaranteeing even more coverage and mockery. Privately, insiders claim Rachel vented that the parody was vicious, unfair, and targeted, feeling like the entertainment world had made her a scapegoat for Disney's broader failures. But public sympathy was in short supply. The internet had already moved past outrage and into full-on entertainment mode, memeing her reaction, parodying her quotes, and stitching side-by-sides of her real interviews with the Simpsons cartoon scenes. Insiders also speculate that Disney's silence throughout the ordeal only fueled Rachel's anger. There was no public statement defending her, no corporate shield to hide behind, just radio silence. And according to some whispers, quiet internal distancing as Disney allegedly realized the Snow White backlash was now toxic beyond salvaging. For Rachel, the reality is brutal. Whether fair or not, she's now trapped in a vicious cycle. The more she tries to move on, the more the culture keeps pulling her back. And with rumors suggesting The Simpsons might not be done roasting her yet, that cycle may be about to spin even faster and even crueler. There was a time, not so long ago, when Rachel Zegler had the world at her feet. She was the new golden girl of Hollywood, handpicked by Steven Spielberg, winning awards straight out of the gate, and starring in a Disney fairy tale remake that seemed destined for box office glory. Fans were rooting for her, charmed by her voice, her breakout role, and the Cinderella story unfolding around her. But somewhere along the way, something snapped, and the applause turned into jeers. Insiders say the turning point wasn't the movie itself, it was Rachel's own words. In interview after interview, she casually dismissed the original 1937 Snow White as outdated, called the prince a stalker, and emphasized that her Snow White wouldn't be dreaming about love anymore. What was supposed to sound empowering instead came off, at least to many audiences, as arrogant and ungrateful. It felt less like she was honoring a beloved character, and more like she was scolding the fans who loved her. The backlash didn't start instantly, it simmered. Small Reddit threads, angry YouTube commentaries, frustrated TikTok stitches, but it grew, because every time Rachel spoke about the film, she seemed to dig the hole deeper. Rather than celebrating the magic of the original, she appeared to mock it. Rather than embracing nostalgia, she dismissed it as irrelevant. And in doing so, she alienated the very audience Disney needed to show up. When Snow White finally hit theaters and flopped, fans didn't just sigh and move on. They celebrated its failure, openly. Walking into empty theaters, filming the silence, mocking the empowerment speeches crammed into a story that once enchanted generations. Rachel became the face of that disappointment, the emblem of how wrong Hollywood could go when it forgot why audiences loved these stories in the first place.
Have you ever considered that your fairy tales have actually stood the test of time because they are always relevant, because that is what a fairy tale is, because they have timeless, universal values and lessons that any person, regardless of their age, regardless of their generation, could connect to. That is why they are so important. That is why they have been around for hundreds of years. You didn't start these fairy tales. Grimm's fairy tales, that's where they came from. People love these for a reason because of the values.
And when The Simpsons parodied her, it wasn't just funny. It was satisfying to those who had felt ignored and talked down to for months. Memes exploded again. Jokes about her being the first Disney princess to lecture a forest went viral. Even casual observers who hadn't followed the Snow White discourse closely, started recognizing Rachel, not as a rising star, but as a walking, talking cautionary tale. Insiders say Rachel never intended to alienate anyone. But good intentions don't matter much when the audience has already decided they're tired of being lectured, and they're even more tired of watching their favorite stories get repackaged into corporate sermons. For Rachel, the tragic irony is that she set out to modernize a fairy tale. Instead, she became a modern example of how fast public opinion can turn, and how impossible it is to claw it back once it does. Inside Disney's walls, the mood has reportedly shifted from cautious optimism to quiet, full-blown panic. Insiders claim that after The Simpsons aired their savage Snowwoke parody, executives realized the situation was no longer containable. It wasn't just angry YouTubers and frustrated fans dragging the Snow White remake anymore. It was their own properties, their own cartoons, their own cultural footprint mocking them, and doing it better than any outside critic ever could. Sources suggest that behind the scenes, high-level Disney executives have been scrambling to figure out what went so wrong. The original plan had seemed airtight, a modernized Snow White with a diverse cast, a focus on empowerment, a fresh spin for a new generation. But somewhere along the way, the magic evaporated. And now, with The Simpsons openly skewering both Rachel and Disney's corporate messaging, the brand is taking blows from inside and outside. Some insiders reportedly argued that Disney should have moved faster to distance itself from the more controversial elements once early backlash started trickling in, maybe adjusting marketing, maybe softening Rachel's public image with a carefully orchestrated charm offensive, but that window has long since slammed shut. Now every attempt to shift the narrative risks triggering more viral jokes, more angry threads, and more animated parodies. Adding to the disaster is the awkward position Disney finds itself in. The Simpsons is one of its most iconic, best-loved properties. Trying to silence or scold them for the Snowwoke parody would not only look ridiculous, it would expose Disney to even harsher accusations of being thin-skinned, humorless, and out of touch. Insiders speculate that this leaves Disney with only one real option: endure the humiliation, let the news cycle burn itself out, and pray audiences eventually forget. But that's a big gamble, especially with rumors swirling that The Simpsons writers aren't finished and may continue sprinkling Rachel Zegler jokes across upcoming episodes. If true, Disney could face the nightmare scenario every brand dreads, becoming a self-replicating joke. A viral punchline that no amount of ad campaigns, press releases, or billion-dollar blockbusters can erase.
We're not all blind, we can still see. Gal Gadot is a beautiful person. And Rachel Zegler is a fairly good-looking person.
Because once your own cartoons are laughing at you, and the audience is laughing with them, you're not managing a PR hiccup anymore. You're managing a collapse. While Rachel Zegler's public meltdown plays out in meme form across TikTok, YouTube, and primetime satire, the behind-the-scenes damage may be even worse. According to industry insiders, Hollywood's reaction to Rachel's situation has been swift, quiet, and brutal. Casting directors, producers, and talent agencies aren't rushing to defend her. They're allegedly doing what Hollywood always does when a star becomes toxic: slowly, silently, stepping back. Sources close to major agencies claim that Rachel's name, once floated confidently for leading roles in musicals, blockbusters, and romantic dramas, is now being met with uncomfortable silence. Some producers, according to whispers, are reportedly flagging her as high risk, not because of her talent, no one denies Rachel can sing or act, but because of the enormous baggage now attached to her public persona. One insider allegedly put it bluntly: "You're not just hiring Rachel, you're hiring the memes, the South Park jokes, the Simpsons parodies, and a Google search page that's a PR nightmare." The danger isn't just that Rachel's current projects are being tainted, it's that future projects could be dead on arrival just by association. In an industry where perception drives profit, few studios want to gamble $100 million or more on a lead actress whose last major public image was tied to the collapse of a legendary Disney property and a cascade of viral mockery. Even Netflix, known for giving second chances to controversial figures, is reportedly proceeding with extreme caution. Rumors suggest that projects Rachel had been circling are now being quietly reevaluated, with executives worrying that the cultural fallout might overshadow any creative success. Other streaming platforms and production houses are allegedly taking similar approaches, optimistic in meetings, cautious in follow-ups, and non-committal when it comes to signing contracts. Rachel's team, insiders claim, is aware of the danger. There are discussions about pivoting towards smaller indie films, trying to rebuild her reputation with gritty, authentic roles far removed from the corporate spectacle that was Snow White. But even that road will be tough, because no matter how how sincere the next project may be, it will have to climb over mountains of bad press, viral jokes, and the looming shadow of Springfield's yellow-skinned savages. In Hollywood, you can survive a flop. You can even survive a scandal. But surviving becoming the meme, especially one animated into cultural permanence, is a far rarer feat. And right now, insiders say Rachel Zegler's future looks less like a comeback story and more like a cautionary tale written in permanent ink. If Rachel Zegler thought the storm would pass once The Simpsons had their say, insiders suggest she might be in for an even harsher reality. Rumors are now swirling that Family Guy, the same show that turned pop culture punchlines like Meg Griffin into running gags for decades, is allegedly eyeing the Snow White disaster for their own future roasts. And if that happens, Rachel's memification won't just continue. It will escalate and possibly become permanent.
Because a woman shouldn't have to depend on a man. Snow White was brought back to life by a lady doctor.
And she lived happily ever after?
Well, she couldn't indulge in strenuous activities like handball, but otherwise, she was fine.
Sources close to the animation world hint that Seth MacFarlane's team has been watching the Rachel situation closely, recognizing it as the perfect setup for Family Guy's brand of cutaway gags and savage one-liners. Nothing official has been confirmed yet, but the speculation alone is enough to send shivers down the spine of anyone trying to rebuild Rachel's public image. Because if Family Guy locks in on her the way South Park and The Simpsons already have, Rachel won't just be a meme for 2024. She could become a recurring cultural joke for years. And it's not just network TV keeping the humiliation alive. TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit have turned Rachel's downfall into an ongoing festival of mockery. New clips remixing her most awkward interviews with animated parodies rack up millions of views. TikTok trends like weird edits, ripping her soundbites straight into meme history, show no sign of slowing. Even AI joke videos, deepfake parodies, and fan animations keep pumping new life into the story whenever it starts to fade. The danger, insiders suggest, isn't just that Rachel is still being laughed at today, it's that her association with Snow White's failure, with woke princess memes, with empty theaters and awkward TikToks will harden into a permanent cultural shorthand, a punchline you don't even have to explain anymore. The kind of joke that sticks around whether Rachel lands another major role or not. Because in today's world, once meme culture grabs hold of you, it doesn't let go easily. It replicates. It mutates. It survives long after the movie flops, the box office numbers fade, and the news cycle moves on. If Family Guy joins in, and if TikTok keeps memifying Rachel at the rate it is now, then insiders fear the worst-case scenario could become reality. Rachel Zegler's name synonymous with Hollywood's most spectacular self-sabotage of the decade. In Hollywood, every downfall leaves a sliver of hope. Careers thought dead have been resurrected before, through humility, brilliant reinventions, or sheer relentless charm. But insiders say Rachel Zegler's situation is different. This isn't just about a single bad movie or a few awkward interviews. This is about something far more brutal, becoming a permanent cultural symbol of how fast and how mercilessly public favor can turn. The story was supposed to be a fairy tale. A talented young actress, handpicked by Spielberg, landing a starring role in one of Disney's most iconic stories. A coronation, not a collapse. But somewhere between press tours filled with dismissive sound bites, a flop at the box office, and viral memes that refused to die, Rachel's narrative slipped through her fingers. And now, it feels like no matter what she does next, she'll be fighting the shadow of Snowwoke, South Park, The Simpsons, and, if rumors are true, Family Guy. Insiders speculate that there's still a narrow path back. A gutsy indie role that strips away the glitz and lets audiences reconnect with her humanity. A carefully controlled comeback tour that acknowledges past mistakes without feeding new memes. A long break from the spotlight, long enough for the internet's short attention span to latch onto some newer controversy. But even those possibilities come with no guarantees because the memes aren't going away. The animated jokes aren't going away. The clips of empty theaters and cringe-inducing interviews aren't going away. Rachel Zegler's face has been locked into pop culture's hall of cautionary tales, and fair or not, it might take an entire generation before her name doesn't immediately summon eye rolls, sarcastic hashtags, and cartoon parodies. And what about Disney? Insiders claim the Mouse House is already moving on, scrambling to salvage future remakes, recalibrating their messaging, trying to pretend that Snow White 2025 was just an unfortunate experiment, not a warning sign. But audiences have long memories for betrayal, and even longer memories for arrogance dressed up as empowerment. So what do you think? Can Rachel Zegler claw her way out of this cultural sinkhole, or has meme culture already locked her fate in place? And will Disney finally learn from this disaster, or are we about to see them double down once again? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like if you're here for the real stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear, and don't forget to subscribe, because when you're ready to see just how deep the rabbit hole goes, the next video is already waiting for you.